Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. It's a Wednesday, remember, and of course, thanks a lot for finding. It's a Thursday rather, and of course, thanks a lot for finding time to come and join us today. Now, welcome to your favorite afternoon show. I'm your host, Nelson Zulu, and of course, today my guest is the CEO for Lusaka Hotel, and of course, he is also the chairman for Lusaka chapter for hotels and catering. Association of Zambia. So obviously today on the show we want to delve a little bit more into the hotel and of course the hospitality industry as well, looking at the past and of course present as well. You know that Lusaka Hotel is actually one of the oldest hotels that Zambia has, and as of today, in case you didn't know, well, now you know about it. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome Mr. David Thompson. Good to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for finding time to come and chat with us today. And of course, how have you been?
Good, very good, thank you.
Interesting. And of course, how is business at Lusaka Hotel?
Improving. Over the last few months, we've seen the cleanup of the city. We've seen the normalization in terms of law and order in the city. And that has really prompted us to be able to market the hotel. In addition, over the last 12 months, we've been doing a major rehab in terms of painting the exterior, painting the interior, refurbishing all the bathrooms and rooms, training the staff. And so all that combined is seeing us positioned much better.
Interesting. Fantastic. How has your business, or has, the popularity and, of course, the business been affected in any way by, the cleaning up of the city, the removing of vending off the street and all that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the CBD, because it became so congested in terms of vending, in terms of traffic congestion, has prompted over the last 5-7 years the removal of the main central business district to downtown. That used to be downtown, and what you now see is Monday Hill. You're seeing the arcades. You're seeing a new CBD and a lot of business houses opening up around them. So that saw the CBD dying, and a lot of the buildings on Cairo Road became a bit dilapidated, and a lot of the head offices of banks and so forth moved out. More recently, we've seen this cleanup, and let me give you an example. By placing all the car vendors, all these people who sell cars, in an orderly place opposite the Freedom Statue, that has meant that there's car parking for those who come into town, which has meant, because people can park, there's no longer congestion of people trying to double park and so forth, and there's no longer the vendors blocking people from trying to walk on the pavements. And all that has led to a realization that actually we do have a decent CBD. But I think in the same voice it's important to mention that vending is important because it gives labor, it gives people a living. I think the challenge was, and I really thank government for stepping in and trying to organize it so that you have the Salaula traders in one place, those who are selling perishables for the markets are now in their markets, and now we're seeing that new markets are being developed. And I just want to echo on behalf of, I think, all the businesses downtown, that we need to keep it up. We really need to sustain it and make sure we restore Lusaka as the garden city.
Interesting. Let's talk about the hospitality industry. You've seen the hospitality industry grow in Zambia, and apparently you happen to be one of the few CEOs running a hospitality industry, one of the oldest really. How was the hospitality industry the time that you were just putting up Lusaka Hotel?
My goodness, Lusaka Hotel was put up long before I was born or you were born. It's more than 100 years old now. It's actually the oldest functioning hotel in the country. But I'm also becoming one of the oldest hoteliers. I left Unza and I went to wash pots at the Pomozi Hotel, um, and have slowly worked my way up until I became a manager, senior manager, moved over to the Intercontinental, opened up the new wing there, and then moved to Kenya as a regional director for Intercontinental Hotels, and then came back and started my own small little business with a small guest house, a small Tuntemba type takeaway, industrial catering, and then eventually acquired the Lusaka Hotel. So yes, I suppose I can confidently sit here and say I've seen a lot in this sector. In terms of how has the sector changed, I think it's really grown. It's fantastic. You know, when you talk about hospitality and catering, sometimes we just think of 3 or 4 hotels in the city, namely, say, the Intercon and the Ridgeway, the Pamodzi, historically the Lusaka Hotel. But now there are so many, many more. And you've seen this new breed of hotel coming out called the boutique hotels, which are smaller, slightly smaller, more personalized. You've seen guest houses mushroom. Every road probably has a guest house. We've seen restaurants. Previously there were 5 or 6 restaurants. Now every mall has restaurants. There's restaurants, there's fast food outlets, there's the Hungry Lion. It's a new phenomenon, Hungry Lion. I mean, every Zambian eats Hungry Lion. And now what's even more exciting is that we're getting traditional. Matebeto. We're seeing traditional food on every corner, 25 kwacha, 30 kwacha. We're all eating our traditional food. So I think there's a major change. We've seen Zambians investing in the industry all over the country. You know, as government opened up with roads and so forth, we've seen lodges opening up, hotels opening up in Solwezi, Muchinga, the Eastern Province, Western Province. Then you've got the traditional ceremonies which are re-emerging as a tourism opportunity. We've seen ZTB open up the Northern Circuit, you know, all these waterfalls and so forth. So I think from the time that I was washing pots at Pamozi to where we are now, my goodness, we've seen a drastic change.
Interesting. Now, is that situation that you've presented good for this kind of business? You know, where every major road has got, you know, guest houses, you know, hotels, lodges, and of course, you know, we've got restaurants that are mushrooming and all that. Is that good for business?
Absolutely. You know, it just shows there's a need. I'm a firm believer in supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's demand for food, if there's a demand for a place to sleep, if there's a demand for transport, then we must meet that need and we must do it economically. Secondly, I think we as Zambians need to participate in our economy. And it's great to see all these guest houses and all these restaurants mushrooming and all these providers of transport, minibuses and so forth, participating in the sector. I think maybe your question's leading me to saying when we use this word mushrooming, we sort of imply illegally. And that's another side. Yes, we do need regulatory processes. We need good standards. We need safety. We need sanity. We need sanitation. And I think that's where the sector has mushroomed faster than the standards and the regulatory bodies could keep up.
How would you measure the standards of most of, you know, these public places that we've mentioned so far?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that, you know, looking at your experience, you've definitely done a survey. You've surveyed these places before. Some of them you've visited them before. Others you've even had a meal there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at all this, how would you rate the, you know, the sanitation, the safety, and all that that is involved?
Firstly, historically, we used to have an inspectorate that used to operate out of the Ministry of Tourism, and you had all the councils having health inspectors and so forth. And as I say, these establishments have mushroomed at a faster rate than we could regulate. But the second thing is that, you know, if you are ready to pay $500 for a room, you're going to expect that standard. And some hotels, some lodges are meeting that market requirement. If you want to pay 50 kwacha, it's the same thing. Your standards are going to be slightly different, and that's been met as well. So in terms of regulation and standards, I would say there are some that are below standard. They are not meeting the minimum standard, which is life safety, sanitation, even morality. Some of them are now brothels, and so forth. So those need to be regulated. And I believe the entire sector, through the current bylaws of all the local councils, need to meet the minimum standards, and that needs to be enforced. And so that's a challenge for all the local councils, not even the ministry. And in fact, what's happened now is regulating the standards of the hotel and catering sector and the tourism sector has been moved to the Zambia Tourism Agency. And I think in the next few weeks, we shall see an SI that enforces that. But it's no longer a situation where you have to be forced. I want to be a 5-star hotel, and therefore we judge and grade everybody by what is a 5-star hotel. I think there are certain grades right across each sector, whether it's restaurants, whether it's fast food outlets, whether it's a small kiosk, a small tuntemba. The important thing is that it must meet the minimum standards in terms of sanitation and safety and so forth. But after that, whether it's the nightclubs, you have the rough ones. Will you be found there? Probably not, but those need to be regulated. There are those who play music all night. They need to be regulated. But those who are providing a good, clean environment, doing good, clean business, paying their taxes, being properly licensed and registered, those we must encourage. And I believe that's our biggest challenge now, is compliance in the sector.
Interesting. You've mentioned repeatedly, you've talked about, you know, five-star hotel. And we've heard, okay, Intouch is 5-star hotel, Edinburgh is 5-star hotel. When you're talking about 5-star hotel in terms of standards, what qualifies, you know, a hotel to be called a 5-star hotel?
There's two ways of looking at this. There's the international trends. Mm-hmm. And if we want to be competitive on the international market, we must comply with certain standards that the international traveler expects. Now, the international traveler, you have those who will go overland. You have those who are hitchhikers. And then you have those who travel first class and want to stay in a 5-star hotel. So a 5-star hotel ordinarily would have very plush environment, furnishings, proper restaurants. They would have room service. They would have in-room amenities that would be like a luxury, okay? The middle tier hotels, 2-3-star hotels, would probably comply but not have, say, a thick carpet or 3 towels in the room, but maybe one. But maybe would have a TV and not have all the channels, but 3 or 4 channels. And then the 1-star may not even have a TV or may not have the luxuries, but provide the basics, which is just a place to sleep, a shower instead of a shower and a bathroom. And they may even have communal bathroom and shower amenities. So there are different grades to what standards there are. And I'm pleased to say that the new standards module that has been developed takes into account all the different levels from a no star to 5-star.
Earlier, you talked about, you know, these have to be meeting some specific standards. For example, you need to make sure that, you know, security-wise, these areas are well secured so that, you know, when a customer, a client is there, should feel the comfort. And of course, you also did make a reference to not only security-wise, but also morality-wise.
Mm,
Exactly.
mm.
What did you really imply when it came to that particular aspect,
The security and morality?
especially morality?
Okay, well, let's get over with the easier one. That's security.
Mhm.
You obviously want to sleep and not feel that somebody's running into your room and stealing your suitcase while you're asleep. So security is an underlying factor. You want to know that the hotel's not, or the guest house is not going to be bombed during that time. And these are realities of the situation. So you need to give that security. And that's why, for example, we have guest courtesy. The real backbone to guest courtesy is not just to make you feel happy, it's to make you feel secure. If somebody welcomes you and knows you by name, you feel, I'm secure in this environment. If somebody just welcomes you rudely, you will not feel secure. So security is a key element to hospitality. And unfortunately, fortunately rather, in Zambia, it's natural. We're a hospitable nation. We love to receive people. And that's a unique selling feature for us as a destination. On the morality side, we're a Christian nation. And, you can't have brothels, even though we say it's the oldest trade in the Bible, but it's classed as a sin. And so you can't have brothels. And now you go there and you may have your wife and your children and you walk into a brothel. That is wrong. And so we want that morality. Morality also extends far more than just sex. Morality is how they charge. Sometimes you get ripped off. Somebody forces you to pay a ridiculous bill, and they know that it's too late, and they just force you to do it. That's immoral as well.
Mr. Thompson, just
yes.
on that point, help me understand what qualifies a brothel here. What qualifies a brothel? Because I've seen some places written guest houses.
Mhm.
Then I've never seen where it is written a brothel. Exactly. So now, it is well known that some guest houses are used as brothels.
Mhm.
So now, is it the charge? Is it what happens in there? Is it who goes there that qualifies either a guest house or a place to be called a brothel?
Sure. When I took over the Lusaka Hotel more than 15 years ago, I believe it was running at a very low standard. You found all the dealers in there, you found a casino, you found a lot of ladies, and I guess now maybe we can even say gents, who were there for business. And I found that they had an hourly rate. Who wants to use a room for an hour? I mean, a room is to rest, a room is to sleep, a room is to stay. So I don't want to define it and say I'm an expert on qualifying brothels, but I think society judges very simply that if you are going there and it's not your wife that you are staying in that room with, and that you are only using it for an hour, and even the promoter is only charging it for an hour, one can only assume that it's not for the right reasons.
Interesting. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm still having Mr. David Thompson as my guest on the show today, talking about the hospitality industry in Zambia. Remember, he is the CEO of Lusaka Hotel, and of course, it is the oldest hotel Zambia has at the moment. It was established long way, very, very long time, exactly, and of course, it is still running. So we are looking at the hospitality industry then, and of course, the hospitality industry now as well. So when we get back from a series of commercials, we want to look at now to ensure that all these infrastructures and of course all these businesses involved in the hospitality industry are operating according to the standards and of course according to the bylaws that are there. What has been put in place? Is there some sort of associations, regulations, regulators who are ensuring that the standards are definitely met by these by the hospitality industry here in Zambia. So obviously, Mr. Thompson will be able to help us really get to that particular point. So, but before that, we take a break.
Great news for all football lovers. Now you can connect and watch all FIFA World Cup games in the language of your choice. How? Easy. Simply follow these 4 steps. Step 1. Press the menu button bottom left on your GoTV remote. Step 2. Scroll through the TV screen until you see User Preferences. Step 3. Click on User Preferences and go to Language Options. Step 4. Select the language that you prefer. Then you're good to go. We're giving you all World Cup matches in your language. GoTV. Live it, love it.
Daily exposure to different environments leads to a buildup of germs, oil, and dirt. These can cause blemishes and uneven skin tone. You need new Dettol Even Tone. It removes 99.9% of germs and is formulated to remove excess oil and dirt, helping to reduce the appearance of blemishes, giving your family the confidence of healthy, even-toned skin. For an even better you, new Dettol Even Tone. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Great. You actually look great in the movie. All right. So how was it like for you to be in the movie?
That's good for me. I liked it.
I think anything you don't understand, you be reluctant to it.
Yeah.
Look at the story where Jesus walked on water. I mean, it's not every day you see a dude walking on water.
They call you at a concert. I'm a minister to people. Should you get paid as a gospel act?
Yes.
There's a verse which says,
Really,
for
really
the
say?
word has been freely and then
and freely.
I don't know where it is exactly.
I know that's a very hot issue. If you're a business person and you put up a concert and you're charging people, I'm gonna charge you.
All right.
The game
That's the way it's supposed to work.
Yes, that's how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm an artist, and this is what I do for a living.
This war on Twitter about music is that the private sector cannot even inject money in Zambian music because you guys sample a lot of other guys' music. What's your reaction to that?
Oh man. That we sample enough. Okay.
We love local. All of your favorite Zambian hits. And much more. Z Rampage, Fridays 9 to 12 on QFM.
Alright, so welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Still talking about the hospitality industry in Zambia then and now. I think there has been massive growth in the in the hospitality industry in Zambia. In fact, Mr. Thompson, you know, the growth in the hotel, catering, lodges, and all that has also, you know, directly impacted on the education sector. Because now we've seen a lot of institutions coming up offering hotel and of course hospitality courses as well.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the biggest challenge I think we have is that we've grown so fast that we haven't really set the right standards, be they minimum. We haven't really developed the skills to a level that actually you have just the basic services, good waitering, good cooking, good room cleaning, good stewarding, good front office levels. We also have a real need in terms of management, you know. All our top hotels are still using expatriate managers and expatriate cooks, which for me is kind of difficult to accept. I think we want international standards, and therefore, if we can't meet those standards, then we must bring in experts. But I think what's important is to impart those skills, be it through hotel schools, be it through technical schools, and even vocational training at grassroots level. Fortunately, an initiative was put in place quite recently called the Tourism Levy. And the levy is primarily meant to develop skills and market Zambia as a destination, and also market Zambia to Zambians so that we can get domestic tourism going. The fruits of that are still yet to be seen. I believe a lot of the training institutions also need, the word regulation is hard, to be standardized, to be set to a good standard, so you know away from any recognized Department of Vocational Training registered institution, you are going to get a good waiter, and not a waiter who moves from one place to another, or a barman who moves from one place to another. So skills, crucial. I believe in terms of the standards that marketing the destination and marketing locally through the tourism levy is also an area that is very, very important. Once you've got the demand, the products, the business of the products increases.
Interesting. I'm sure that all these challenges that you've talked about, I'm sure that you and, of course, your friends in the same industry thought the best way in which we can address these challenges is by having, routine checkups and, of course, having some sort of regulations. And I'm sure that is what gave birth to the Hotel and Catering Association of Zambia.
Yeah, I think the Hotel and Catering Association of Zambia is also one of the oldest associations in the country. I think it's an umbrella body that brings the needs of us who are in that sector. We all have similar needs, and that's what the association is meant to do, to help us when it comes to collective bargaining, licensing, making sure that we have this level playing field. For example, I honestly do believe that if we're all paying taxes, if we all compliant in terms of the right licenses and laws that are required, and then we compete in terms of the quality of our product and the quality of our service, we'll have a much more sustainable business. Currently what's happening is those who are not compliant, maybe not paying good salaries or fair salaries, maybe not properly licensed, maybe not paying their taxes, they have an advantage over those of us who are trying to be compliant, because obviously there's a cost to compliance. So we want that to happen. Secondly, I believe we want to engage government positively for the right incentives. So if you're constantly saying, government, we want a rebate on tax, we want a rebate on tax, how is government going to survive? They also need their income. So if we can work together with government and broaden the tax base by making sure that all those who are in our sector are compliant, we can then go to government and say, right, we've increased our compliance level, say, from 40% to 80%. Therefore, can we have a 10% rebate on bringing in equipment, on participating in the sector? And that can only be done by a group, a lobby group, Sometimes lobby groups are misunderstood that we're just anti-establishment. We want rebates from government, we want government should do this, government should do that. But I believe as an association we have common needs. We can regulate ourselves, we can help all the other organizations to help us develop skills. We can work with the donors to improve our schools, our hotel schools, and our tourism schools. And if it's collective, the economies of scale work in together. You know, at the moment, there are so many levies. At my last count, it was more than 30. Now, can you imagine a small, medium-sized operator, Zambian, trying to be compliant? And this is the flip side to the argument that I've just given. And you have to go to 30 different places. You have to go to council. I want to run a restaurant. You want to go to the municipality or the fire brigade to get the license. You really spend so much time and money, and you are really inconvenienced because everybody has to fill out a form, everybody gives you receipts, as opposed to saying, okay, let's have a one-stop shop. Okay, let's ensure that all these interested parties meet at one point. And I know the Ministry of Commerce is mooting this initiative now. And I look forward to that happening, where you can go in and pay at the beginning of the year. And if I have a restaurant and I have a hotel and I have a guest house, I tick whatever I'm supposed to pay, and I'm compliant. And then all those other parties who are getting some money from that fee can come and collect their money from that one-stop shop. I believe these are the sort of things that, as an association, we can get together, see what our common needs are, and then strive to work to getting those.
Interesting. You did mention that you have mentioned that obviously the Ministry of Commerce is trying to, put up such kind of an arrangement. Have you engaged them as an association just to make sure that you meet halfway, you make your presentations, and of course you get the feedback? And how has the feedback been, if at all you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think government is more than willing to listen to us. Most of all, we need to be organized. I think that's the starting point. In the last few years, I think the association has not been as active as it could be. And so in a few weeks, we are having an annual general meeting, and we hopefully will then bring on board leadership that will bring us together and then correlate all the needs of us in our sector. And as I said, we're a very important sector. We provide probably more employment than any other sector. And so if we can be united and have common issues, then we can go to the likes of the Ministry of Commerce, the likes of Finance, and all the other related organizations that we work with, and ministries and institutions, and present a common goal. So I would say, to really answer your question, we haven't, I think, fully represented our needs to the respective bodies. But we've seen these initiatives, and so we must quickly join the initiatives of, say, the Ministry of Commerce. I'm aware that the Ministry of Tourism is now working through the Zambia Tourism Agency in terms of setting up standards, and we need to be now actively supporting their initiatives.
Interesting. How are the numbers in the association?
I would say very low compared to the number of institutions out there. I've already said there are so many guest houses. There are so many hotels and lodges all over the country, let alone in Lusaka. There are so many restaurants and fast food chains. And I believe most of them are not members. And I think our challenge as an association is to make it worthwhile to become a member. Mm-hmm. And this is, again, what we're hoping to do at the AGM, is to really bring in leadership that will set and develop confidence and trust in all these potential members, that this is the forum that we can really have our needs and have our voices heard.
Interesting. The fewer numbers in the association, could it be that it has been affected by lack of information in terms of where people could have themselves registered? Is it that maybe people don't even know that the association itself does exist?
I think it's all of the above. I think we need, as an association, to develop much more awareness as to our existence. I believe in each of the regions, we're an old association, and therefore we have a well-structured setup, but it's actually making that setup work. I believe all the regions have got regional heads and regional subcommittees, and all of them should be driving the benefits of becoming a member. And I think if we are not united and then we don't get the incentives and we don't get heard at the right forum, then people say, why should I bother? Why should I pay my annual subscription fee? Nothing is happening. So you're absolutely right, communication, having real purpose to what we do as an association.
Interesting. Maybe let me also take this opportunity and, of course, just get it from you. What are some of the incentives that come with membership of this association?
I think fellowship, and that's such a broad term. You know, if I have a similar problem as you, and maybe 5 more of us have a similar problem, you can collectively solve that problem. So it could be an issue of wages, disciplinary, staff issues. It could be issues of incentives with ZRA or with the Ministry of Finance. It could be joint marketing. So especially with like the lodges, the economies of scale for lodges is much smaller. You have a lodge, I have a lodge, we only have 6 rooms, we only have 10 employees. Really, we can't afford a personal manager, a marketing manager, a finance manager. But collectively, we can afford those skills. So that's a very, very big incentive. I'll give you an example of, again, it's more applicable to the small to medium size members. Right now, we have pension schemes, NAPSA, okay? And a lot of people do not carry gratuity on their balance sheet, on their payroll. But I believe if we collectively went out and got ourselves, as an association, an insurance plan that members could buy into, you would find that many more members could then make this offer to their employees. And that's just one example. Another good example is marketing and sales. If, let's say, we want to promote in the Western Province, apart from the Kumboka ceremony, because that is so well known now, but there's so many other things. The Western Province has the biggest migration of the wildebeest in the region. And if we want to promote that, one lodge cannot do it. But if the whole group came together and promoted it, they would then be able to buy much more mileage. And I think those are the sort of collective benefits of belonging to the association.
Interesting. Well highlighted. In line with the same, I don't know how your association treats various members, because I believe we've got a membership from a hotel's point of view, membership from a lodge level, and of course restaurant catering levels as well. So there are different levels of memberships. I don't know whether these levels are treated differently, or maybe they're all treated under the same standards.
You can't treat it the same. It's a bit like FAS. You can't have super division teams who have better sponsorship, who have better players, playing in the same league as a domestic district league. And I think the same thing applies here. In HCAS, we look at hotels, and those hotels are the big brand hotels. We then look at the sectorial hotels, which are the boutique hotels, small to medium-sized hotels. We then look at guest lodges, and again in the guest lodges, there are different levels. In terms of the hotels, in terms of restaurants, it's exactly the same. You have big restaurants, you have kiosks, and so forth. So you've got to differentiate, and their needs are different. Of course, there are collective issues. It could be, for example, the one of insurance that I've just spoken about. That affects all of us. And even our membership, starting with membership, we have different levels in terms of how much you pay. It would be wrong to charge somebody who's got a guest house of 10 rooms the same entry fee as a hotel that has 220 rooms. And that sort of brings me to like the minimum wage. We believe that the minimum wage has to be looked at sectorially. The big hotels can afford to pay bigger wages. The small units that are still providing employment should at least meet the minimum wage. But it should also be, I believe, and this is interesting, geographical. The cost of doing business, say, in Chipata is different to the cost of doing business in Lusaka. So to have a minimum wage that applies in Chipata, the same as the one in Lusaka, I believe needs to be looked into. Of course, you don't want to have it so micro broken up, but at least there needs to be some basic sectorial and geographical minimum wages in terms of every aspect. That's just one example.
Interesting. What do you look to achieve during the AGM coming up?
Firstly, to redefine our purpose. What is the way forward for HCAS? Given what we said right at the beginning of this interview, the incredible increase in the sector. So I believe HCAS, we need to become alive to this growth and these needs and the opportunities. Some of our other associations, the Farmers Association, the miners, they are way ahead because they were crucial sectors, agriculture and mining. I believe hospitality and tourism is now a huge sector that needs now an association that is alive to those needs. And so that's one. I think the future of HCAS, we need to try and debate that and resolve the way forward, maybe a 5-year plan. The second thing I think is to put in place the right leadership that will then take that plan of the members and drive it into a reality. The third one, I believe, is to make sure that the association then becomes truly representative of the industry and therefore will drive an increase in membership. And finally, I think the association, therefore, having done all that, will become well recognized by government, by all the other institutional players.
Going forward, what do you wish to see beyond the annual general meeting?
Okay, firstly, I think the fact that I've said, and I challenge everybody, I believe we are the biggest provision of employment in this country. And the problem with making a statement like that, it's too broad. Is there empirical evidence to prove it? And I believe working with the Ministry of Tourism, working with Ministry of Finance, working with all our regional heads and the Zambia Tourism Agency, we can justify that, okay? And if not, well, then we prove it. So I think becoming more scientific in just the way we manage this industry, proper data, knowing how much do we, apart from the number of people we employ, how much do we contribute in reality to the economy. And once we have that empirical data, we can then engage and put in place proper incentives to grow the industry. And I believe that would, if we manage to do that, we'd really have achieved a lot post AGM.
Interesting. Obviously, one of the key questions that could be of interest to many people involved, or many employees especially involved in the hospitality industry, is that is HCAS also speaking on behalf of these employees? Are they lobbying on behalf of these employees? Can they be engaged, especially where emoluments are concerned and also workers' conditions are concerned? Can they also appeal to you, and of course, will you be engaged and of course speak on behalf of these people?
Absolutely. I mean, there's two sides to this coin. If the employer, who actually are our members, is not doing well or not compliant, it's going to affect the employee. But I must say that the employees have representation through the union. They have their own Hotel and Catering Association, Hotel and Catering Union, who specifically have that mandate to represent the employees with most of the issues that you've talked about in terms of conditions of service, in terms of employees' rights and so forth. But I think sometimes we misunderstand our role as employers. If we are doing well, if we have motivated staff, and since our sector is very much a service sector, service is primarily what we do as individuals. It's labor intensive. And so we should be able to really provide a good working environment without the need of unions, and to the extent that there should be harmony. And therefore, I think as an association, collectively, we should be able to engage with the union and even engage with some of our members who may be not compliant to good employee relations.
Interesting. Finally, so you spoke about the AGM. When is the AGM likely to take place?
Okay, the AGM is from the 19th to the 21st of July. This year it's taking place here in Lusaka. Anybody's welcome. And I would really encourage, even if you've never been a member, to come along. Okay, you can take your membership there and then. Obviously, at the actual AGM, which is a 2-hour part of the proceedings, if you are not paid up, you will not be able to vote or participate. But I think it will still give you that encouragement to know what is going on. And hopefully it will encourage you to pay up. We start on Thursday with a welcome cocktail at the new Hilton Hotel. I'm sure people would be interested to know that the hotel is about to open. This is on Cairo Road, Zambia's newest 4-star hotel. And that's why we're taking our members there, so that they can see new standards and that this industry is growing. On the Friday, we have a workshop where we'll be discussing the standardization of our product, exactly what we were talking about, together with the Zambia Tourism Agency. And also we'll be having a session on the way forward for us as the Hotel and Catering Association. In the afternoon, we would like to take all the members to the Lusaka Game Park. I don't know if you've been there.
Wow.
But many of us don't realize that Lusaka has a game park. And yes, it's in its gestation period. How is it going to get better unless we promote it? As more people go, then they'll be able to get more animals. So we're taking the entire AGM attendees to the Lusaka Game Park to see what is going on there. And then on Saturday morning is the actual AGM. That's a business session where we will look at issues of how HCAS is being run at the moment. We will look at the possibility of some elections and the finances, etc. And then in the evening, we have our final gala dinner and some awards.
Interesting. Well, Mr. Thompson, thank you so much for taking time to come and
Thank you
of
very
course
much,
share with
Nasser.
us
Yeah.
the history of the hospitality industry in Zambia and of course the vision of the HCAS as well. And we obviously wish you all the best during the AGM coming up.
Thank you very
And
much.
hopefully that going forward we'll see quite a lot of activities done by HCAS, and of course we'll hear much about HCAS as well in real, as compared to the
past.
way it has been in the past.
Thank you very much for having me. And on behalf of HCAS, we'd just like to appeal to everybody who's either involved in hotels, guest lodges, restaurants, come and participate and let's unite so that we can have one strong association.
Interesting. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that does it for today. So we just dedicated enough time to talk about the hospitality industry in Zambia, and of course looking at the hospitality industry yesterday and of course today as well. I think it's been quite interesting to note how it's been growing quite fast, and just how it has also affected other sectors of development. For example, the education sector. I think you've seen quite a lot of now, schools introducing the hospitality department where people are now getting trained, and of course we have seen also the coming up of, a lot of restaurants due to the fact that, people have now been trained, and hopefully that as the AGM passes, we are going to see, proper standards being, put in place for all these, all these businesses running under the hospitality industry, so that, people can get the value of their money, can get the best services for their money, and of course can be able to enjoy. And on top of that, hopefully that the country will be able to realize at least a very huge contribution to the country's GDP from the hospitality industry. Personally, I believe this is one particular industry, if well managed, can actually contribute greatly to the boosting of the country's economy, looking at just how many people are involved and what is actually being done. In fact, it works hand in hand with the tourism sector. So if the tourism sector is improving in the country, you should also expect the hospitality industry to improve, because one, tourists who are coming in the country will need, will need lodging, will need, food, will need all those services involved in the catering hospitality. So they need to improve at the same rate. Hopefully that once going forward, we'll be able to see massive improvement in that particular sector. I've been your host, Nelson Zulu. Until next week, it's bye-bye.